So today, hey, I got to make y'all understand, we might be too young to have witnessed this era back in the 80s. The Dolphins, they are entering territory they are used to, in that 1980 era. We might be young, but if you did your history, or you a connoisseur of football in the National Football League, you know about Dan Marino in the 1980s and how they used to get down. And I don't think anything is different from this team, this new Miami Dolphins team. Why? Let's get into it. You know what I mean? Now that Tua is the man, Mr. 1-2-3. That's what y'all don't know. Y'all ain't been with me. My nickname for Tua is Mr. 1-2-3. Now that Mr. Tua is paid, the Dolphins had to figure out a way to retain and provide the talent for Tua so he can continue to make progress and thrive as a quarterback in the National Football League. Talent is already there, but how long will it be there? How long will that talent be there? Tua has a lot to prove to the critics, and his expectations are high to the roof. Now it's more prevalent than ever because he's the $200 man. Tua said it himself, heavy is the crown. I am the highest paid employee at this job. So that means to me, that lets me know he embraces the challenge and what lies ahead of him and his team, and he is ready to adapt and do what he needs to do. But for Tua and the Dolphins, we already know and we understand, because we already seen them do it, they're going to go crazy in the regular season. They're going to run it up, put on the show, and look great in the regular season. We already know that. So we already expect that. So when you have an audience already that has our expectations already, and you don't achieve at least the minimum of those expectations, man, it seems like everybody's against you. But beyond the regular season is what's most important. Now, Tua Tagovailoa will go down as best statistical non-Super Bowl winning quarterback, along with who? The fellow Dolphin, the legend himself, Dan Marino. But that's as long as Patrick Mahomes' presence is still in the NFL. Tua Tagovailoa will never beat Patrick Mahomes. Now, what would be the difference from Tua Tagovailoa and Dan Marino's career, right? If neither ever win a Super Bowl, what would be the difference? They both throw for tons of yards and a bunch of passes, but they never get to the big game and win the Super Bowl. Because ain't no goddamn way on good goddamn God's earth, green earth, that Tua will beat Patrick Mahomes in any championship game, period. So I don't see this happening. That's why this era right here, that the Tua era will end as the same as Dan Marino era. Minus making it to the big game, because at least Dan Marino made it to the big game. So what would be the difference in these two quarterbacks? Only thing would be Marino broke pretty much all the passing yards and all the passing accolades and things like that. It was back in the 80s. Marino was a little bit before his time. Now, Tua, on the other hand, he throw for quite some yards. Now, he really lightened it up. But quarterbacks, I always said, quarterbacks are not measured by this statistics. They are measured by winning and winning the Super Bowl. And winning the Super Bowl will always be an issue for the Dolphins. Tua, Tyreek, Coach McDaniels, and so on. How to dethrone Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Better yet, can Tua outplay Mahomes in any game? And the answer will always be no. Now, like I say, we're a little young, and 1980s is way before us, but if Marino had the talent that Tua had, it would definitely be a different story for Marino. Marino probably would have, won more of those championship games, at least one Super Bowl. But don't get it twisted. Marino had some dogs at wide receiver in Mark Clapin and Mark Duper. He had some crazy talent, and they was a little bit before their time. And they both went for like 1,300 yards in one season. And that was on 15, 16 game season. So, but for Tua, the other issue will always be durability, the durability question. How long can he last? And at the end of the day, the question would be, was it worth it, right? Because the way the season ended last year, man, that really has to have everybody concerned. And especially with the heavy is the crown, the man, because he was the head of the offense when they lost those 3 games at the end of the season. And being eliminated from the playoffs, that is not a good sign, especially having such a dynamic season and team with so much talent, right? And for the other question is, can the Dolphins be physical enough to defeat the Ravens? Not just Patrick Mahomes and them. The Ravens kick that butt up and down the field. So it seems like this team will fall into that category of the Dan Marino era back in the 1980s. Throw for a lot of yards, win a lot of games. A couple of seasons where they won a lot of games, right? But never achieve greatness, which is winning that Super Bowl, right? But if the Dolphins didn't re-sign Tua, I'm curious to know who would have threw a bag and jumped the gun to sign Tua. The only thing I could see him doing was getting a one-year deal. I can't see any team out there ready to throw the bag at Tua and say he is going to run this franchise. You understand? Now, see, with Tua, he needs a lot of help. And now that he signed, it's mandatory that the Dolphins re-sign Tyreek Hill. If they don't re-sign Tyreek Hill, you're going to impede the progress and the success and the getting betterness of Tua's career. Without Tyreek, Tua loses all confidence he gained from the time he became a pro. And we would see a tragic downfall immediately. It would equate to Tom Brady leaving Bill Belichick, and we seen there was no hope in the future. Bill Belichick was stuck in his ways and couldn't figure things out without Brady leaving. It would be the same thing with Tua Tagovailoa if Tyreek Hill is not there no more. His confidence would go to the gutter, and he wouldn't be able to figure it out. Like I said, Marino has some damn good talent now, and Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. The same way Tua has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it ain't really, no big deal, no big difference. Tua, at the end of the day, I'm rooting for you, brother. I'm just here criticizing and holding you to that standard, the standard that everybody needs to be held to, the highest standard, and you paid like it. You got the yards like it. Now let's just deliver a Super Bowl or a championship at least. Something for the fans in down South Florida to be excited about. You understand? That's all everybody is waiting on, man. That's all we're waiting on.